Good afternoon and welcome to the FundForum here in the Middle East. My name is Peter Duke from Fidelity Worldwide Investment, and I'm delighted this afternoon to be joined by Mishal Kanoo, the chairman of the Kanoo Group. Mishal, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. As a seasoned investor and in the Middle East and long-standing, maybe if you could just give us your perspective on the investment opportunities as you see them currently in the region.
This region is a very fluid region in that you don't know what to expect next. Some things are drastic and you can feel it, and other things are a bit more subtle.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you have your proverbial finger on the pulse, you won't be able to figure it out. I think the obvious thing everyone is talking about in this part of the world in terms of investment is the boogeyman, which everyone talks about, which is IS or ISIS
mm-hmm.
or whatever the hell they call themselves these days, which is something to pay attention to.
Yeah.
The other thing, which of course is the elephant in the room, which again, but fortunately everyone wants to talk about, which is the issue of oil.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing, which is significant, is the issue of the cooling between the United States and Iran and the repercussions of that
mm-hmm.
happening within our region. Those are the major things. Then of course you have the more very local issues that are happening internally or within changing of laws, changing of ideas. Is there a construction boom? Isn't
mm-hmm.
there, etc. and so on and so forth. Starting off with the more larger scale, what's going to happen with Syria, Iraq, and its impact on the Gulf region?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking, I'll focus on the Gulf region because that's my area of knowledge.
Yes.
We don't know. To be honest, I have absolutely no idea whether IS will continue to be there 6 days from now or 6 years from now. I have no idea. Whether it be accepted as a country eventually or not. So I can't sit and tell you this is going to be a place and how much that's going to impact. Because if tomorrow IS is recognized as a country, then there's a business opportunity to happen over there. Is Syria going to be shrunk in size? There's also another business opportunity there, or investment opportunity. And how's that going to impact Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Iraq? Also could have a business opportunity. So I don't know what's going to happen regarding that. The price of oil, which is a more, I'd like to say easier, but it's not, but a more obvious issue is the price of oil has dropped from 115-ish down to about 40-ish,
mm-hmm.
50-ish, somewhere in that region. The last time we had something of that significance was after the collapse of the Lehman Brothers in 2008-9,
mm-hmm.
where the price of oil did come down and then had a drastic bounce immediately after that. But again, the issue is perception, because the time it took to recover, this has been much longer, but there was a recovery.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I've always questioned is, in 2009, late 2008, 2009, you had a total meltdown in the world financial sector and subsequently the economies. And so you could see the price of oil careening towards
mm-hmm.
where it did because there was a reason that happened. We didn't know whether the economies were going to survive,
mm-hmm.
let alone prosper. So the price of oil will come down. Now we're still talking about small blips in terms of economic downturn, whether it was in Europe, whether it's States, whether it's China, India, etc. They were not significant, and yet the price of oil had this massive correction. I think, I'm not, while I hear a lot of economists talk about it being a demand and supply issue, I think there's a lot more to do than that. If I said what I think, people will say, oh, you're a conspiracy nut, so I'm going to keep away from that. But I will state that I don't believe that the price of oil is going to stay where it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to go up, and significantly up, because there are people who will benefit from it. I usually, my professors used to tell me, follow the money, and for me,
yes.
I'm following the money,
yes.
and the money says, a lot of people have lost money, a lot of funds have a lot of money on the side. That is a hedge against currencies, a hedge against markets. People will come into it as a commodity, mm-hmm. and it'll pick up. And then, of course, people are saying, but there was a whole commodity implosion. Again, I think it's the same thing, but oil is something more prevalent and
mm-hmm.
in our face,
mm-hmm.
so that you can see it a lot more. How many people talk about the price of copper, steel, etc., but yet they do affect us?
Yes.
But the price of oil affects this region a lot
mm-hmm.
more. In essence, I will state that in excess of 80 80%, if not more, but let's say 80%, of the economies of the Gulf relies on oil. Okay.
So if you have that argument with oil prices, maybe going up in due course, but at the moment at low levels, I mean, what do you see as the impact for economies in the GCC, and actually how successful have they been in terms of diversifying, do you feel?
Can I get back to that one after talking about the last one, which was the issue of Iran?
Yes.
Because that also comes into this one. You have the issue of Iran coming in. The moment Iran and the US sign off on their parliaments sign off on the thing, which is most likely going to happen. From this part of the region, politically it's unfavorable. From a financial point of view or business point of view, at least for the UAE, it could be very favorable, specifically Dubai. But that also comes to the issue of the linkage of the price of oil coming down, because they will say, well, tomorrow Iran will be able to tap into it. I think it'll take months, if not years, if tomorrow this is signed before the refineries, before the exploration, before they fix all of what they have to move from 900,000 barrels, I think, with currently, to about 3 to 4 million. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. So, but the markets are already what you call discounting it. They've already factored it in, so you can see the price of oil coming even lower, because they're saying, oh, tomorrow Iran's going to come on board. Between activating it and opening the spigot, it takes a while. To the point you're talking about, which was regarding the effect of the price of oil on the economies and how have the governments reacted towards it. Initially, you had a lot of governments brush it off within the regions, the ones who could afford it. Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE and Kuwait would be the ones which are significantly able to, say, withstand a few more hits. The ones who took a massive hit, obviously, would be Bahrain and Oman in terms of the GCC. The question is, how is it going to affect the economy as a whole? We are economies here based that are really reliant on fiscal spend. Fiscal spend, whether it's in infrastructure, whether it's in the oil and gas field itself, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in education, all of it usually stems from fiscal spend. And in addition to fiscal spending, you have the private sector coming in. When unlike in other parts of the world, when the government enters into a sector, in the rest of the world, private money filters out because they get afraid. Here it's the other way around. When the government enters into a sector, that's when you see private money going into the same sector too, because they're thinking, if the government's sure of it, then we're sure of it. Okay? But the fiscal spend that had to come to a slowdown, because there's no choice. If my income is becoming less and less, my spend is going to have to come less and less. But the question is, are they going to stop the infrastructural spend? The answer is no. The question is, my time horizon, which could have been 6 months, a year, 18 months, might stretch out 36, 48, 72. But I'm still going to spend because I have no choice. The other issue is, will it be taken as an opportunity by the governments to restructure both internal and external, as in my external investments and my internal investments within the answer is the smart governments will do that, and those who want to take a blind view of the things will not. I will not speak on their behalf, because that's an issue for the governments to do. But for me as an investor, are there going to be opportunities for me to invest in this region? And the answer is yes. And if the Iran-US thing comes to fruition, and all parties, and I'm talking about the west coast of the Gulf, agree that this is a good thing, then there will be a natural, what you call it, bumper crop, because you will see a lot of money coming in from Iran into this part of the world, specifically to Dubai. Because there is a door of opportunity for the investors, for people who have their money locked up in Iran, Iranians I'm talking about, not external, will take that money, bring it here to Dubai, into different sectors, to ensure, is everything fine? Because there's arguments today at I was listening to the Republican debate, where some of them are going with bravado, saying, the moment I become the president, I will nullify this deal. So you have a lot of Iranians who would also think, okay, let's take some money out. This is security. If the person X, whoever wins the Republican side, and eventually wins if You never know. Wins the nomination to be nominated to be the candidate, the president of the United States, and doesn't negate, then that money flow will flow back into Iran, and then Tehran will actually become an area of investment opportunities. If it does, if that person does become that and does close those deals or puts back sanctions, then at least some of that money that came out will stay in here and it will circulate within the economies over here. So it's going to be a positive, potentially it could be a very positive thing for whatever happens here. I'm hoping that business sense rather than political decisions wins at the end.
And if you actually look at that opportunity of money coming in, is that targeted at private markets and private opportunities? I mean, where do you see almost the balance with, accessing that opportunity but limiting your risk? I mean, where do you see the best
usually when money flows from one place to the other, it usually flows in a certain manner, and I don't know another way around that. First flow goes to banks. Second flow goes to properties. Third flow goes to businesses. And if you are looking long term, it goes to manufacturing or industrial based warehousing and such. Long term plan. I think it will take the same flow. Monies will come into the bank. If they're not stopped, it will go into properties. Again, what type of properties? I don't know. As in, is it going to go into luxury properties? Is it going to go into medium income properties? I don't know. Is it from there? Will it go into businesses? See, the thing is, for a lot of Iranians who are set up over here anyway, they have their businesses. So the question is whether they will come into the properties, into the business, or because they've circumvented that, go straight into the business. So I can't tell. The only question would be whether it goes from a normal trading business into long-term manufacturing, warehousing, etc. That will be interesting to see.
All right. And just actually one final question, which you highlight politics as an issue, oil prices. The other thing that a lot of people talk about is China and the slowdown in China. How does that impact the Middle East? In some respects, it is still an emerging market, but your sense on, will we see any repercussions if there is a sharp slowdown in China here in this region?
Because China, unlike a democratic country where you have political levels and or concern about certain requirements from lobby A or lobby B, they run shop like we run shop here. So I want to do something, I'm going to do it. I want to slow the economy, I'll slow the economy. I want to increase the speed of the economy, I'll increase the speed of the economy. China, as a growth, there's two issues of growth. There is the normal day-to-day economic growth, and then there are strategic growths. So, from a normal day-to-day, as things heat up in China, because they can react immediately, they can either lower, bring in the factors that will lower this heating so that it cools down, even though it means externally it looks bad. Or if it doesn't care, it can heat it up again. To that aspect, there is a certain amount of economic factoring to go to. You come to the strategic. The question is, can China afford not to continuously buy commodities, the different types of commodities? Can it strategically afford to turn off the tap and say, I'm not going to work in Africa or the Middle East or any of the other places they work with? I mean, for example, one of the big things that they have right now is in Pakistan, where they're building a massive corridor over there. The question is, just because they have created an economic slowdown, will they stop working in that corridor to Pakistan to get the commodities that they want to get to? I don't think so. I don't think that they are that desperate. I think that they are desperate to get their hands on those minerals. So therefore, I don't think they're going to allow economic issues to slow down their strategic issues. The same thing if you look in East Africa, West Africa. I'm not sure about North Africa, and to a certain degree Latin America, and even in their backyard, which is Australia and such. They have that. It's not going to slow down from a strategic point of view. So the question is whether you are going to be, part of me wants to laugh. In that, recently I was reading in the FT, and it said we can't trust the numbers of coming out of China. I'm thinking, for 10 years, they've been giving you these same numbers, and you had no problem. You went with them. Now, when it doesn't suit you or is causing an issue, now you can't trust them? I'm thinking, come on. There's a certain amount of, I don't want to say hypocrisy, but there's a certain amount of game playing that's happening. I don't know who's benefiting out of it, but as I said, I follow the money, and for me, this is a very simple thing. If someone's making some money out of this thing, and someone's losing some money out of this thing, I'm following the one who's making the money.
Yes. Yeah. Mishal, I think we have to leave it there, but a wealth of opportunities, a wealth of insight. Thank you very much for your time today.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Enjoy the conference.
I hope
Thank
so.
you.